This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are designing our future. Hola, I'm Joe Villa, and there have been hundreds of thousands of books, podcasts, and blogs written about AI and its effects on all of us. But I want to dig a little deeper this week and talk about how AI is going to affect the world of global supply chains. We all know about that thanks to the pandemic, but my guest today knows a whole lot more. His name is Joe Hudicka, and he's the author of the new bestseller, The AI Ecosystems Revolution, Transforming the Global Supply Chain Through Real-Time Collaboration. Joe is a speaker, teacher, and tech entrepreneur with 25 years of experience in the global supply chain industry. Joe and I are both from New Jersey, so expect a very enthusiastic and energetic conversation. Joe, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am fantastic, man. Amped to be here.
I'm amped to have another Joe here because, I think all Joes are cool. Snoopy said it best, feel cool. But I want to start, obviously, AI is your racket. And I want to start with one of my pet peeves, Joe. And I don't know if it's a pet peeve of yours or you agree with this. AI is a tool. Man, as a Gen Xer, first of all, the word tool is funny to me because it's not the same meaning, but this sort of minimization of the impact of what AI is and calling it a tool, to me, I don't want to get too dramatic, but it's patently offensive. Like, it's not just a tool. This is going to change humanity in one shape or form, whether it's in extreme manner or if it's in small increments. But this is bigger than a tool. Joe, let's start with your thoughts on AI as a tool.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I got to tell you, I've been lucky enough to be building on a custom enterprise software solutions for a long time now. AI is just another feature that we're going to be able to help leverage. But the thing is, I've discovered during these last couple of years, we've fundamentally been doing this whole software thing completely wrong. We've been making people help software. Well, what we should be doing is making software, which actually helps people. So I'm going to give you a little challenge, Joe, on your, let's say tomorrow, right? You get up and you're ready for your best day ever. You got your tea, your coffee, whatever your preference is. Turn on the computer and look at it and see what it does for you. Just wait, because it's there to help you, right? You're not there to help it. But that's not the way we've been building any of the business solutions that we've had for decades. And now AI comes to the table. What can AI do? Well, unfortunately, there's two approaches to that too. There's always goods and there's bads. And most of what we see in the conversations around AI are really about job reduction, job elimination. And what's that going to do to the people that remain in jobs? It's going to crush their creativity. They're not going to be interested in coming up with new great whiz-bag ideas because they're feeling like they're the next number that's about to get hit. So when I think about AI and all the buzz that's going on in the world, I kind of get a little sad because we're not taking time to really embrace it in a way that helps people. And that's where we got to start. Because the reality is the information that it needs in order to learn to do what it needs to do isn't even available to it right now. So if we put the expectations way up high and the information ready to train it is way down low, we've got this huge failure gap waiting for us. And that's what you've been seeing in the hype cycles.
And as someone who's been in tech for a bit, how funny is it to you that since, I'm trying to remember, was it November of 23 when ChatGPT came out? How all of a sudden, like, everyone and their grandmother knew what AI was, but and they say this new thing called AI. Did you chuckle a little bit like, new thing? I've been working with this thing for a decade. How funny were you to see how sort of like the mainstream merge with the sort of like the backstage of the world of tech?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My reaction was giggling because what else can I do, right? It would be followed by immense sadness, right? Why aren't people getting it? Here was a great moment. This was a moment where AI matured to a place where us humans could interact with it. We can go to a browser, we can ask it a question in human language, not, if and or kind of, normal search stream engine type experiences. We could have a conversation. And that part got me really excited because now I can see the masses ready to start embracing and learning with it. But fundamentally, because I live in that world and knowing AI has been around a long, long time before this, I know how much more growth there needs to be, both in the capability of the technology and humans' willingness to embrace it. And so that's the part that got me excited, that now we could hit a tipping point where more people could be ready to be curious. Now we could start seeing art of possible. And now we could start having really great curiosity brainstorms around what we might want to try first and next.
I love that. I love that. You're a CEO of a company, Even Flow founder, and famously, Mark Zuckerberg about a year or two ago hyped Meta's use of AI and talking about the fact, I mean, it's Mark Zuckerberg coldly saying that AI is going to eliminate coders. Like, we are not going to need human beings to. And he was like, and to me, I get, like, all he's doing is trying he's a fiduciary. He's trying to raise stock prices. He's trying to make more money for investors. So I get that. But the coldness of saying that we're going to eliminate so many jobs because of AI, tell me about this fractured balance of, and obviously you get it, Joe, but like how AI is going to help, but it's also going to replace. How advice for CEOs who, because they don't want to be left behind, so they're going to embrace AI, even if they don't know, even if they don't know as much as you do, Joe, about how it actually works, and the human factor. And I know the human factor is a big part of it, but some advice for these leaders that are going to be embracing AI and using it as a replacement for humans.
Well, I always bring people to history. I always bring people to history. A couple decades ago, it's really not that long ago. Shocking, really, right? A couple people had this whiz bang idea. We're going to bring this thing called a personal computer into the workplace. And sure, it was going to marginalize some jobs that were out there, like file clerks and typists. But within a couple decades, we all of a sudden had an entire IT development industry of millions of people. Didn't exist before. That demand didn't exist. Now it did, right? Major growth came out of that fearful moment. And, also not so long ago, this whole .com thing happened. Might have heard of that one, right? We're not just going to put content on the internet. We're going to sell stuff. Oh, right? In that crazy moment, you get a single company like Amazon that grows to the point where one company's got millions of new positions that they create and maintain. So the growth opportunity out of a transformational technology is always far more massive than what we fear to lose. So the advice to the leaders is to look at a mindset that's more abundance than scarcity. What we've got to do is look at a multiplier effect and 4 multiplier effects. Where can the combination of this technology of AI with our people, putting people first, where can the combination of them be greater than the sum of their individual parts? That's the focus that we've got to look at. There are plenty of use cases in every industry. If we just put a lens that elevates our people in the forefront, they'll tell us where the best applications are today. And we just need to follow.
Nice. I love that. And as you know, Wall Street and investments, the investment community, they're future focused. It's always been about the future. And a perfect example of this is the streaming revolution that occurred over the last decade. When Netflix came in and changed the game, you saw all these other companies saying like, oh, we need to have a streaming platform. And Wall Street was like, yes. And the only thing we care about is subscribers. Just get subscribers at all costs. And then, this is my joke, Joe. I say, Wall Street woke up one day and said, we don't care about subscribers. We want profits and growth. So you saw the way Wall Street reacted to that. And you're seeing that same reaction with AI and investment community. If you've got AI in that first line of your company, people will want to invest. Tell us about, you mentioned this hype cycle that we're in. How are we going to work? How is this one going to end? Because we saw what happened with streaming, and you mentioned the .com. There was this same thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Same thing. So tell me, how do you think this will play out because of this? The hype is just bringing so many people to the table.
Yeah. So first of all, you're going to keep watching big tech reinvent AI. You don't hear them saying whatever the prefix is of it, like generative, for example. You hear that less and less. Why? Because they don't know which version of what they're launching is the one that's going to resonate the most and give them some massive win in the market, right? So within a year of generative AI out there, getting out there, we had big tech come out and announce co-pilots, right? It was like, wow, well, that was a very short flight, wasn't it? Right? Within another year's time, it's repackaged yet again. We got agents. Now all of a sudden we got spies, right? The technology is being looked at as something that's lurking in the shadows. And sure, it's going to help me by watching my job, but tomorrow it might replace my job, right? So now that whole perception creates a whole fear around the agent terminology that we see running rampant through media. So we're going to keep seeing the hype cycle get reinvented, repurposed in a different name. Don't look over here. We used to call it that, but now we're going to call it this, as they're getting micro wins and losses along the way and working towards figuring out where big tech can make money at it. That's the fundamental problem. You know, investment, sadly, has been highly institutionalized all the way down to the startup level. All right. So, where there used to be these things called angel investors that had resources and a deep passion for something, they're now aggregated into groups and they're making decisions like VCs do, and VCs make decisions like Wall Street does. And so, none of it's out there to help the person who's got the passion and the dream to solve the problem or opportunity that they see in the world. It's institutionalized. And so I see big tech continuing to play this game of mini hype cycles while they're trying to find their place. And I think there's going to be an emerging different kind of thing under this AI ecosystems revolution I've written about. I think there's going to be a transformative sea change.
All right, and that's in the book, but I want to get to that. But I have one more little tidbit I want to pull us in. So thank you for indulging me. And that's the AI backlash with consumers. So I don't know if you saw, there was a study last year that said people were less likely to buy a product if it was labeled AI powered. And because people thought, oh, AI is the big thing. Let's make sure, like, I think there's like AI powered toothbrushes. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not power. It's like, it's like Alexa. It's not it's like to use a tool. It's a tool. It's like an application. It's not AI. So you're seeing this, and people being like turned off by like, all right, I get it. Everything's AI, but I don't care. I'm not investing in it. And this could be a generational thing, Joe. Maybe, Gen Alpha and the generation after that will probably be more embracing it on the consumer level. But tell me about that in terms of, like, we've been discussing the behind the scenes and in the rooms where it happens in Hamilton with investors and startups. But how about the people that this is eventually going to affect?
That's a great question. I've got a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, a friend of mine recently blew my mind with a thought. Did you ever see those posts on social media that talk about the human's attention span has now fallen to that less than a goldfish?
Yeah.
He turned my world upside down. He said, that's not what's going on. Our expectations for a higher level of quality and entertainment are continuing to rise. So what gets in front of us as content, and I will say also products, our expectations are higher than ever. We could see through the buzz that somebody's trying to ride the wave of this AI term when it's saying it's woven into a product. We see through it, and very quickly. And we don't have to waste much time on that. And I think in a consumer level, that's very much what's taking place. I think people are seeing it as white noise and they're swiping and just dismissing, right? I don't believe that there's any value there for me. And I think that's one of the fundamental things that's really going on from a product positioning to consumers. I think they're looking at it and they're saying, hype, nothing underneath it, next.
That's awesome. By the way, I'm going to steal that goldfish thing because, and another thing about that goldfish analogy that people don't even think about is that we have the data now. Like, if you have a TikTok or YouTube account, you can see how long people stick around for your content. And it's now black and white. Before, we used to be like, oh, maybe people don't have the attention span. Like, we literally see it now. And the idea of expectations, that's a great example of, like, people thinking, oh, it's the people's fault. It's not my fault. It's like when you hear content creators be like, why aren't people following me? It must be their fault, or I must be getting shadow banned. It's like, no, you've got to meet their demand. And if you're not meeting their expectations, you are going to fail.
Joe, you just touched on a great classic example of where AI could create value for people and the companies that they're in. You just identified the data of the content already exists. The data of the consumption already exists. And so now AI could responsibly be applied to study the content that's being consumed and identify what's working great and what's not working great. And it doesn't have to be hunting in the dark. We could be looking at what is resonating with people and leverage the technology to see it faster than we can. Because, as you said, there is officially more data in the world today than there's ever been before, and there is every second, more than any individual human can consume. So this is a great example of where the technology of AI could be applied responsibly to create real value that puts people first. Don't put crap in front of me I don't want to see. It can help with that.
That's great. That's great. All right. So you mentioned the book, The AI Ecosystem Revolution, and at the mothership, Advantage Media, the company I work for, we have this saying that if your book is for everyone, it's for no one. So your book, who is it for?
Great question, Joe. This book is written for C-suite level executives in the world of global supply chain. It turns out that that little tiny industry, right, is really the most massive and most complicated in the entire world, because we're making, moving, and trading stuff and delivering services around all of that every second of the day, right? It never sleeps. Supply chain always has to be live. And when you look at the beginning of the pandemic, and we had this crazy moment that looked like a northeast snowstorm where everybody's running around scurrying to find milk and bread, only now we're trying to find toilet paper and chicken, right? You think, it's just an anomaly. You know, that pandemic thing doesn't happen very often. Pick up the news any given day, and you're seeing yet another supply chain catastrophe, whether it's on semiconductor chips or parts for automotive, you know, the tariff things happening at a macro level, labor shortages at a micro level. Fundamentally, right, there's these shifts that are going on. And I wrote the book for C-suite executives to understand and detect what I call these silent shifts, which are transforming all of our industries in the shadows. It's these big, massive changes that appear small and even meaningless at first, until they've completely transformed an entire industry's landscape as glaciers do to land. And AI is very much one of these silent shifts happening in the world of supply right now. But, you know, people look at it and say, it's not really doing anything until it's too late.
That's good. You know, it's funny. We talked about earlier how grandmothers learned about AI in 2023, but grandmothers learned about supply chain in 2020 and 2021 because everyone all of a sudden knew what a supply chain was. I didn't know what the hell that thing was because, and it's so funny. So I'll tell you how I learned, Joe. I went to the supermarket. This is like during the height of the pandemic. And I go into a grocery store, and like everyone, you see the empty shelves of toilet paper. And so I went to the manager and I'm like, yeah, I heard there's like a shortage of toilet paper. He goes, no, there isn't. There's plenty of toilet paper. It's just our supply chain is all mucked up and we can't get product in our store. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense now, because I think people were sort of mixing up or conflating shortages with supply chain because they're two completely different things. And it became heightened. So now that I asked you your reaction to the blow up of AI a couple of years ago, when supply chain went mainstream, where you're like, all right, now they're talking my language.
You know, I really had a lot of hope in March 2020. I thought for sure the world was now ready. We couldn't unsee what's happening, what's been happening forever, and we can finally do something about it. It took me until October 2020 to realize I needed to do more. And that's when I began writing this book. And that's when I began the launch of Evenflow Cloud Logistics. Because what I realized fundamentally is, in the world of global supply chain, we've been having what I call these disconnected conversations. So it'll be the retailer talking to the consumer products company, who's talking to the manufacturing company, who's talking to the supplier. There's all these transporters in the middle. But the problem is, they're all disconnected conversations. So when the consumers decide they need more toilet paper than ever because they're going to open up a brand new toilet paper warehouse in their basement, and they're not going to tell everybody, right? And all one of their neighbors do the same thing. What happens is a major shift occurs inside a supply chain. And really smart academics named it the bullwhip. You know what a whip looks like? You crack it, and by your hand, the wave looks small. The impact is small. But the further you go out on that whip, you see a much more dramatic effect. Those consumers deciding that they were going to treat the pandemic like a northeast snowstorm caused the whole thing to go crazy. because now all of a sudden the stores say, I need more toilet paper than ever. So they tell the manufacturers, hire more people, we need more toilet paper. And the transportation companies say, oh my God, we need more trucks. Until eventually everybody had more toilet paper than they could ever need coming out of their ears. And now all of a sudden we tell the bullwhip to stop. It can't. You've already put an artificial signal into the market to get extremely, reacted to. And so the fundamental thing that I'm teaching is that we need to move away from the traditional mode of forecasting, looking at next year, guessing, and then rolling with it. And everything goes to hell 3 days after we set the plan because, reality is different from planning. And we need to move towards something I call force streaming. And this is the part that AI is going to benefit from. We don't really have, even though there's lots more data today than ever before, if you look at any industry like supply chain, but it applies in all of them, customers and partners, they don't share a lot of data with each other. They treat business more like a game of poker. I'm not going to share everything that I can with you because my secret sauce, my competitive advantage is in there. I might get a better price if I hold out a little longer, a little bit of information. And so when I look at business, and I don't care what kind, product, service, anywhere in the world, they all boil down to three basic things: contract negotiation, contract performance, and contract compliance. And we can measure the signals on all of these in near real time now. Another great example where AI could be put on. So we could be learning as the changes are starting. Instead of saying, oh my God, these tariffs might make everything go to hell inside of 90 days. Or bird flu. It might be a big deal. And waiting until it is a big deal. We could be sharing these signals with customers and partners throughout our ecosystems. We can be having contingency plans that are not disruptive to put in place. And we could be making little changes that minimize the bullwhip effect as we go.
That's good. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to talk to you about forecasting, and that's one of the things people outside of the supply chain world don't realize or even think about is that all of you people in the supply chain world are forecasting. Like, that come March, people are going to need pardon the French, a shit ton of fertilizer because it's springtime and people are going to dig. So going back to the pandemic, no one could forecast that in March of 2020, all of a sudden, everybody's going to want to have like 50 pounds of toilet paper in the house. So hence the supply chain disruption. You mentioned force stream. Can you break it down a little bit into a little granular in terms of how you think that helps that model? Because I think as long as there's no, economic interruptions, climate interruptions, a ship breaking down, strikes, it's pretty safe and easy. I mean, they've done it for almost 100 years in terms of forecasting out. How does force stream help that existing model?
Yeah, it's the timeliness of it. We're no longer making a guess at a year from now today and trying to hold to it, maybe adjusting on a monthly basis, right? Instead, it's measurement every moment. And it's measurement on two levels, macro and micro. We're a global economy, right? We have threats of things like tariffs. What does that do? Changes the entire economics of the situation, right? All the way down to the consumer. Now, are they really going to happen or not is kind of irrelevant because the mere specter of them is already causing all kinds of hell in supply chains. Okay. So the thing is, we need to get out of these news cycles about the signals in supply and demand. And we need to have an ecosystem of force streaming all the signals so we could see in context. How does it affect me at the retailer? How does it affect my partners at the manufacturer and their suppliers and all the transportation companies in between? Because then we can bring this crazy word in the world of supply that we all go after, resilience. We'll have contingency plans that are fluid. It's not something that we planned, and if there's a disaster, we'll hope it works. No, we're monitoring, having the right conversations in force streaming these signals with our ecosystem of customers and partners. So we'll know plans A, B, and C, even if they evolve day to day themselves.
Nice. All right, cool. We talk about these trends and disruptions. You write in the book about the silent shift. Let's get into that as we wrap up our conversation.
Yeah, so there's a funny little silent shift that I use in my examples in my keynote that's going on in the fast fashion industry right now. Okay. In the world of global supply, there's been three massive shifts. There was the shift from every store or every town having its little general stores. to getting these regional stores that are a little bigger, a little further away, but they had a larger, volume of product options to you, right? And that was Silent Shift 2. Silent Shift 3 is going on right now thanks to fast fashion. So, for anybody that's familiar, whether you like the industry or not, for anybody that's familiar with the Timus and the Sheins, right? You can literally purchase something and have it fly from one side of the world to the other to you, literally overnight. This is a massive silent shift that's happening in the world of global supply. Why? Because over the last 20 years plus, you've got the likes of Walmart, Target, Amazon building massive distribution center infrastructure on their payroll, on their bank, right? Building the facilities, buying the trucks, hiring the people. Now you've got companies that are saying, geez, if I don't spend that money, I can afford to pay for the air travel of this cargo and get it right over to the person overnight. And there's really awesome companies on the other side, like FedEx and UPS and even DHL. They'll be happy to do the last mile delivery. Totally transformative in the entire concept of what universities teach, supply chain design. It's happening right now. And most folks just aren't even aware. It's not just about buying stuff cheaper. It's a complete revolution in and of itself of how you design your supply chains.
Mm. All right. I don't want to get too controversial, but you've mentioned the tariffs a couple times here, and the idea again. I'm not super educated, Joe, but the idea I see behind tariffs is that we want to bring more manufacturing to the United States. And again, not very bright, but I realize if you do that, it's going to be more expensive a product than you are if you're doing it overseas. What can we find a balance where it's not all US made and but some foreign made? Like what I'm confused about this whole tariff situation is like, what's the end game? Because yes, I get like more US. Everyone wants more products made in the US, but then you mentioned fast fashion. No, everyone wants to pay $5 for a shirt, not $50 for a shirt. So I know you didn't want to get. I don't know if you wanted to get into any of this, but like what's your thoughts on this in terms of like the idea behind tariffs fueling more American-made products, but then what that means to the end user?
Yeah. So first of all, tariffs themselves, plain and simple, they're just a vehicle to be able to bring some sort of balance for parties that feel like there isn't some sort of balance. Okay. So just put that complexity aside. What are we really trying to do? And you talk about bringing more manufacturing jobs back into the States. Well, guess what? When I was going to college, I helped make Lysol products in the factory right next to my mom. And in the winter break, I helped make barrels next to my dad. We did a lot of manufacturing. But guess what? Manufacturing today looks completely different than what it did back then. We, through our family foundation, we've got deep relationships with this organization that every state in the union has. They're called manufacturing extension programs. And they're a nonprofit that helps matchmake organizations that want to make in the States, along with, the companies that could do it. Here's the magic. Manufacturing today looks like computer-aided design software with all kinds of equipment right next to the person that can help actually do the manufacturing. Sometimes it's 3D printers that are printing things. Other times it's reductive. It can carve a part out of a block of metal, for example. So manufacturing today doesn't have to be the same kind of model as it's been before. And the scale of product that we can create can be much more massive, and it could create product that is wanted by other markets as well. So the idea of being able to bring back an important spirit of America in manufacturing from when Alexander Hamilton and George Washington sat up in Passaic and said, this waterfall is pretty powerful. Maybe we could do something with this, right? I think we can still do something with the ingenuity that we have here. And I think we can do it not just for the good of here, but worldwide as well. So it's a balance thing. And I think that's all we're trying to do is find a way to be able to bring that spirit along and balance at the same time.
There's so much nuance to that, Joe, because I think you break it down so eloquently. But I think what people fail to realize is they're trapped in that. Oh, it's the old school Ford, the Laverne and Shirley assembly line. Not anymore. You know what I mean? And of course, Joe, we are dating ourselves here. But the idea of like, I get it. If I may sort of elaborate on what you're saying is like, we can manufacture, but we're not going to manufacture what they're manufacturing in China. We're not going to make $1 t-shirts in the United States. We're going to find something that fits with the structure of, something called labor laws, which, something that's not discussed in any of these discussions when it comes to manufacturing in the States. People work 8 to 10 hours or whatever in the States. Over there, not so much. And if a cement truck falls on your head, you probably can't sue over there where you can't hear. So I love the how you highlighted the nuance of manufacturing in the States. That's great.
Thank you, Joe. Listen, I only know how to live in the future. I've only recently learned how to start talking to people about 50 years from now in the context of the next 10 years. I'm still working at that. That's the key that I'm trying to deliver there, right? There's a much bigger future if we focus in innovation. But if we look at AI with what it's good at, which is looking at history, all it can do is give us predictions based on what happened. What it can't do is the power of the creativity of the human mind. And that's where innovation comes from, and that's the future. And so for my part, I am doing everything I can to be able to help all of us celebrate the power that we were born with in our creative minds. And let's turn that into these new experiences, products, and the like.
That's great. Awesome. Awesome. All right, Joe, I always wrap up these conversations taking folks behind the dedication of the book. And you dedicate your book to for my superhero and his sidekick without whom I wouldn't be, for my wonder twin who optimizes all I wish to be, for my rock band who scores this amazing journey, and my super fans creating this bigger future I see. You know who you are. Obviously, we can't go and reveal who all these people are, but why was it important to name this group of people and dedicate the book to them?
Well, I'm going to hang up before I choke up. I everything in my life that I've been blessed to, see and be a part of, is because of other people. And that's why I wrote it the way I did.
Awesome. His name is Joe Hudicka. The book, The AI Ecosystem Revolution, Transforming the Global Supply Chain Through Real-Time Collaboration. Joe, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Be good, man. Thank you. This was great. A lot of fun.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more about Joe and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.